hip-hop, and gospel.
All my music on one station.
Giving you a buffet of music, news, and entertainment. We're In Touch Radio.
The views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the host, guests, and callers who are responsible for their content and do not reflect the opinions of In Touch Radio or its staff.
Good morning. Good morning. Let me say it one more time. Good morning. This is Clinton Patterson. You're live on In Touch News Radio, reality radio. Everybody can be a star, and this is straight up the middle. You know, every now and again, they they leave the back door open, and I get loose in here by myself. And so this morning, it is just me in studio, and I have a couple of callers lined up. In particular, former State Senator Ed Noreen is going to be calling in at about 10:20. But listen, for right now, listen, I'm wild and loose, and let's not let the title of the show, straight up the middle, be a misnomer. I am as far left as left can be without being back on your right. So let's not confuse my tendency to veer to the left on issues. And right now, this morning, one of the things that we've not talked about this month is Black History Month, and I'm happy that I've got in studio with me my DJ Bezel is in the place to be. Listen, check this out. So I've been wanting to have a little bit of a soliloquy, so to speak, about Black History Month, because I was walking outside getting my trash, and my neighbor's getting his trash, and he's an older white gentleman, and he was kind of, lamenting about Black History Month, and he was like, by the time we divide up all the months, give everybody their history, we'll all just be so divided about what has happened in America and what we really stand for. So, after I gave him a lecture on, why we need to talk about Black history, I decided, you know what, I want to spend a few minutes talking about it this morning here on the show. And here's really what my issue is, and not with Black history. I call it more Black awareness. I more call it cultural consciousness. Because if you're not aware of the forces working against you to prevent you from having the fullness of the American experience, regardless of what group you're in, you're mistaken. And let me talk about that for a little bit. Let's just go down history lane. And for those you taking notes at home, make your notes and send me your emails, and I'll respond accordingly. But check this out. So when America was founded, it could not stomach the idea of giving African Americans freedom and full citizenship. So we were declared 3/5 of a person and not included in what that document set forth as a structure for America. Fast forward, I don't want to take up too much time on this. Fast forward, we get to the American Revolution. And in the American Revolution, and theoretically, it was fought for to preserve the Union. And Lincoln said, if I could preserve the Union by maintaining slavery, I will. And if it takes ending slavery to preserve the Union, I will. And so he concluded he needed to end slavery to preserve the Union, and he did. That led to the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, which collectively gave African Americans their freedom, their citizenship, and the right to vote. And you would think at that point in time, it's just now a matter of getting off and running, and hey, how about everybody just go forward and be Americans? But America would not let that happen. I want everybody, wherever you are, what city, what state, because we're a national show, just think about the various areas of your community. And have you ever wondered why there are Black areas, and I'll use this word, loosely, not so Black areas? I don't think that you can go to any city or community in the United States and not find a predominantly African American community. Now, we can say, well, people who are similar like to be around people who they are similar with. Okay, I can go for that a little bit. But let me tell you really why you have these communities and why it's been so pervasive. There's a book called The Color of Law, and I am reading that book in conjunction with the Toba Leadership Institute class of 2022. That's why I'm dressed so dapper, Bezel. Got my bow tie on and my vest. I don't get to wear. Wife let me break out the crushed velvet velour or whatever it is jacket, that sits in the back of the closet. And she held my hat hostage. She wouldn't let that back out the house. Yeah, but I'm pimped out today because I'm going over there to welcome in this class of 2022 for the Tampa Organization of Black Affairs Leadership Institute. But you would think that at the end of the Civil War, you know, Reconstruction, we're off to be full Americans. So look around and you will see that in the African American part of town, it's a little less prosperous than other parts of town. The first thing is that wasn't always the case. Used to be that the African American parts of town were very, very prosperous because they had their own banks, their own insurance companies, their own full economic infrastructure so that people in that community could prosper. Well, that's long gone. But let me tell you why that is the case. And the Color of Law is an interesting book for this reason, DJ Bezel. Here it is. This book chronicles the history of America government, and I'm talking federal, state, and local complicity, completely working in concert to restrict African Americans from spreading out to broader community. I know somebody saying, "There you go again, talking about race in the government. Give it up." All right, let's walk through it then. So first, we start out with communities were not that segregated. People lived where they could find housing around who they could find housing with. But the government, let's start with the federal government. The federal government was not so comfortable with that. And while it adopted the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment in good faith, it never acted in good faith to maintain integrated communities. Well, how would we do that? Well, first of all, everybody knows that you cannot get major development, housing, or construction done without assistance from the government. And so early on, what the government did is said, fine, we'll help you build stuff, but guess what? It has to be segregated. We'll build white communities and we will build black communities because they don't really want to be together. And the last thing we want to have happen is have those black folks affecting white folks' property value. Now, you would think that that's something crazy going on down in the South, huh? I can't believe them people down South do. But then you find out this was pervasive in New York, Chicago, Detroit, St. Louis, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, Oregon, all over the Northwest, the Northeast, and the Midwest. It was less pervasive in the South than anywhere else until the federal government forced its way in. Well, how did it force its way in? With financing. So if you wanted to build a development of any significance, and let's time period this. The main time that we needed mass housing, DJ Bezel, was after the Great Depression, and they realized that people were out of homes, they were out of work, and the federal government under Franklin Delano Roosevelt came through with these great work projects. And one of them was to build housing. Now check this out. Here's where it comes from. America was terrified of communism. And you think, well, what does communism have to do with property? Well, one concept of communism is that individuals don't own property. The government does. And the government decides, like if you live in, let's say Cuba. Cuba decides where you live. If you don't like you living where you live, they come and tell you, your address has been forfeited. We're going to move you somewhere else because you don't own it. The government does. So the United States federal government thought home ownership was important to prevent communism from taking root. That if people own their property, own their homes, they'd be less inclined to have somebody come in and say the government is taking over. Therefore, we wouldn't have communism take root in America. Now, this was a big deal because, see, what was happening was the federal government was not really delivering on the American dream. And this became most evident during the Great Depression, that there were so many people homeless, hungry, out of work, in despair, without any hope. And the federal government was worried that communism, which had swept through Russia, it had swept through China, would take root in America. So home ownership became a great strategy as a defense against communism taking over America. And so the federal government gets into the loan business. It's loaning out money to build subdivisions and give people quality housing so that they can live in it. And at the same time, it is financing construction for single-family homes for white families. It's building long-term rental housing for black families in the form of mass housing projects. So at the same time, you get housing projects built in Detroit, Chicago, St. Louis, New York, and all over America to house black folks that they will never own and be told where they live and what they do. It's financing single-family home construction for white families. And these are laws in place that are being administered by the federal government. So this entrenches your white communities and black communities. Well, you know, federal government finally starts to loosen up a little bit, and you get, after World War II, you get the VA gets involved, the Veterans Association. Well, they come in with the same idea. You know, of course, black folks want to live with black folks, so we're only going to finance veterans housing in black communities for black folks. And then we're only going to finance veteran housing for white folks in white communities. And to help y'all stay apart, we're going to do something better. We're going to let white folks put a race restrictive covenant on the deed that says, I can never sell my house to a black family.
Wow.
And if you do, guess what? My neighbor can sue me. So not the person in the transaction, but the next door neighbor. And they tied this all to property value. That if a black family moves into a neighborhood, they would have the white flight. And we've seen that, we know about it. But this is federal government. And so when all over America, you have these communities now where people are congregating because of economic and housing decisions made by the federal government. I'm just talking about black history here, y'all. History is about history. History is not about Beyonce today and what's happening with Kim Kardashian and Ye and whether or not they're going to get back. That's not history. We talk about the history that is still influencing how we live and what we do. Well, okay, federal government decides, okay, we need to get our hands off this at the Brown versus Board of Education. But the local governments step in. The local governments. And so I want to build a 5,000 housing community of mixed-use housing. Well, guess what? The local community wouldn't zone it. If it was integrated. If you didn't, and so I'll tell people, I'm in Tampa, Florida, for wherever you listen to me. And I'm going to name a couple of black communities. You'll say, wow, I didn't know about that. And I remember asking this question 30 years ago. There was a brand new neighborhood being built called Green Ridge. It's out in near Claremelle, Palm River area. Mm-hmm. And I may have been in my early 20s. And I thought, wow, this is pretty interesting. How do you get so many black folks from so far away to land in the same place? They were coming from everywhere. And I just couldn't understand it until I researched a little bit further. And then you find Progress Village, Green Ridge, and there are a number of other black communities, the Fishbowl. These are everywhere, everybody. Your community has these, where the federal government, the state government, local government colluded to make these communities only available to black folks.
Wow.
And so you look around and you think, well, why do all these people live in the same area? Let me tell you, it wasn't by accident. I hadn't even gotten to the insurance component of this, that if you went to get a mortgage, they would say, well, you can get the mortgage, but you won't be able to get any housing insurance on that, so we can't give you the mortgage. And let me change that. Oh, but the mortgage company, in certain communities, you had to have 50% of the value of the house as a down payment. Again, restrictive provisions put in place by government structures that led us to have this segregated world that we're living in now and trying to unravel, so to speak. And people wonder, well, why is black history important? Because if you don't know the history, you'll fall for it again. And I just think that we have to be much more vigilant about this. So when they start talking about putting up a new school, well, for a long time, if you're in a certain community, you're in a black community, we're going to bring you a brand new state-of-the-art school. So you have no reason to try to go to another school. And in other areas, we're going to put the schools so far out, so far away, that other people wanting to desegregate those schools, you really can't get there. And I'll tell you something, when you ride down, and I'm in Tampa, you ride down I-4 and just wonder why you keep seeing high schools. Just wonder, why do you keep seeing high schools so far out along the interstate that are hard to get to for people who live in the city? State-of-the-art schools, beautiful facilities, just wonderful. Think about this. One of our main high schools in Tampa, for almost 30 years, it didn't have a football stadium. And people talk like it's the craziest thing. Thomas Jefferson High School in Hillsborough County for about 30 years did not have a football stadium. And people pretended like, well, what's the big deal? When you drive by those schools and look at those major complexes that they have built out there that are just spectacular. But this is history, people. When you ride around your town, wherever you are, there may be organic communities where African Americans live and other cultural groups have congregated. But behind a lot of that, we have long-standing laws and practices that have led to that. Anyway, I wanted to open up this morning with a little bit of Black history. Like I said, I'm here by myself, and we're going to rumble along all day and have us a party here, y'all. So hang in there. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to jump into some of the things that are really affecting, like that inflation getting in your pocket. And can you believe these new abortion bills passing all over the doggone United States? You listen to In Touch News Radio, reality radio where everybody can be a star. We will be right back after this message.
Hello, Tampa Bay. This is Ainsley Doe with Florida Realty Unlimited. As a broker with 15 years experience and a veteran of the Navy, I do understand your needs. Real estate prices are up. So if you're thinking of selling your home, call me for a free market analysis. If you're planning to buy a home, please call me for a free buyer's consultation. For more information, call Ainsley Doe at 813-546-1954. Once again, the number is 813-546-1954. Or check my ad out in the In Touch News.
Call Ricky. Ask Ricky. You need medical or a lawyer? I got the man to do the legwork for you. We tried the other ones before, so believe we hunted down 813-248-6300. Everything gon' be okay. Call Ricky, he coming. He taking care of state of Florida. Grab a pen or sundown 184-361-RICK. That's 184-361-425. Never word from the point forward, just recline. Just ask Ricky, plus your boy statewide. Just in case you missed it, I'ma tell you one more time. 184-361-RICK. Call Ricky, ask Ricky. It's a legal medical referral service. The doctors and lawyers in our network are trained in handling auto injury claims and getting you the best medical treatment and recovery. Dial 1-844-361-RICK. That's 1-844-361-7425. Ricky. Ask Ricky.
Hey, this is Agent Wright, better known as Mr. Clean. You looking for some great barbecue? Come see them two brothers in the grill, located at 423 Virginia Street, Charleston, West Virginia. We got ribs, chicken, pulled pork, brisket, collard greens, mac and cheese, baby. Come get some and get you a nice, smooth cigar. 304-550-4431. That is 304-550-4431. Come get some, baby. The Rib Man, mama, the Rib Man.
You've been injured, you deserve help from an attorney that knows how to handle your injury claim. This is attorney Clinton Paris from the law office of Clinton Paris. For over a decade, I worked for insurance companies, and now I use that knowledge and experience to help people that have been injured. For a free consultation, call me, attorney Clinton Paris, at 813-413-7924. That's 813-413-7924, or at parislawoffice.com. At the law office of Clinton Paris, we take the pain out of being hurt. Offices, Riverview.
All right, we're back live on In Touch News Radio, reality radio. I don't know what we want to call this, spring cleaning or what, but we're post Valentine's Day, and I'm in studio by myself and just trying to just clearing it out, just getting a little stuff off my. Check this out, Bezel. The stuff that's been done to black folks in America, that's happened all over America, and let me just change this to all people who are disenfranchised and don't have the full power that America gives you. It couldn't be done without people they know who are complicit. Let me talk about the cleaning out of the Jews out of the ghettos during World War II in Poland. You know who did it? Other Jews. They were in charge of deporting their fellow Jews until they got down to where the deporteurs were the ones left, and then the Germans came in and put them on a train. What I'm saying is Bevel, is what's happening to black folks, Spanish folks, lesbian and gay, wherever they are, it could not be done if people just like them were not participating and helping. So when I talk about this real estate stuff, the steering that goes on in buying and selling homes, it's black realtors. It's black mortgage company executives. It's black agents for various companies and entities. It's black folks at corporations. And see, this is why when you have to have a certain level of consciousness, whatever position you sit in, so that you're willing to take on and say, hey, listen, that's not right.
That's not right.
And the worst thing about it, you don't have to do it that way, because really, capitalism will transcend racism. Because capitalism is just trying to make money.
Right.
When I stop to get gas in my car, capitalism says buy as much gas as you need for your car. Racism says we don't want you shopping here. See, capitalism will trump that. Right. And that's what OJ was trying to say. Hey, I'm not black, I'm OJ, meaning I got money. My capitalism, my economic stature trumps my blackness. That's really the dynamic. But if we were to really let capitalism go, we don't want to let it go though, because capitalism, and I'm drifting now a little bit, it has no conscience. It doesn't care. All it knows is money. And that's why when we talk about a 7.5% interest rate, that's not due to shortages, and that's not, you know what it's due to? It is a result of capitalism and greed. You cannot tell me due to inflation, K95 masks, a packet, I think it's 1,000. Mm-hmm. When the pandemic started, it cost $23. We have had 7.5% interest inflation since then, which is the price of goods going up. But that same set of masks would call you $57 now. That's not inflation. That's capitalism. Capitalism says I make as much money as I can make when I can make it. You go to buy a car. My wife and I are looking to buy a new car. They're no longer putting the manufacturer's suggested retail price on car windows, because they're selling that car for as much as they can. Forget what was recommended, right? Forget what was suggested by Ford or Chevrolet or Nissan. The dealer's selling that car for as much as he can sell it for. Mm-hmm. And he's not apologizing for doing so. So much so that we've had warnings come out from the manufacturer saying, hey, you guys need to be careful with these prices. But if you let the free markets go, and that's why government becomes so important. And a couple of things I want to talk about on the government side. That's my Black History moment, y'all. I've told you. Please, just know your history, and that way you can avoid repeating it. But let's talk a little bit about what's happening with our government right now. And I mentioned the issue with inflation, 7.5%. Now, we're being told the majority of that is based on the fact that there's shortages of various things in our economy. Also, you see our government, and particularly in Republican-controlled state houses around the country, taking aim at abortion rights. Florida, we just passed a 15-week abortion limitation. And here's why that's significant. There's something called the moment of viability for a fetus, for a baby. Its viability, meaning when it can survive on its own in theory. When it almost becomes its separate entity is the moment that it can survive on its own. And that's around week 24. That is where that can occur. And that's why the week 15 becomes much more significant. And let me say, before you send your emails, I hear you people typing right now. I hear them typing right now. I hear typing right now. Listen, I'm not saying I'm for or against abortion. What I'm for is me staying out your personal medical business, particularly for women. I am for women making a decision. You and your maker will meet up one day, and y'all will discuss, what you did. They'll lay it all out in a sheet of paper or tablet or whatever they're using, to read you in, and they'll go down the list. You'll check off some things, and you'll answer for what you did or didn't do. You need not answer to me. You do not need to answer to me. So from a abortion standpoint, I'm keeping my hands in my pocket. And I would rather see our government keep its hands in its pocket. But here's the undercurrent of that, DJ Bezel. It's a quote that I get out of The Godfather 2. they're out in Sierra Nevada, and they bring in the senator because they want to open up a new casino. And the senator says, well, listen, the license for the casino is going to cost you $250,000. And Michael Corleone says to the senator, he says, the senator says, I don't like you people. You come out here with your greasy hair, acting like you're legitimate business people. And I'll do business with you, but I don't like you. And Michael Corleone says, Senator, we're both part of the same hypocrisy. And that's what this abortion bill is. It is hypocrisy. Because my fellow friendly Republicans constantly talk about, don't tell me I got to wear a mask. Stay out of my business. Don't tell me I got to get a vaccine. Stay out of my health care. But you run crazy all out of the place to limit what women can do with their health care. It is a crazy hypocrisy. And it's one of the undercurrents that makes people distrust democracy.
And the government.
It makes you distrust because you don't see values don't change with the circumstances. Values exist because they exist, and they then dictate what you do in the circumstances. And unfortunately, and I will say that this has become even more glaring for Republicans. Listen, Democrats are no better than Republicans when it comes to the good of the people. They're no better than. They really are no better than. I would say that within the African American community, a significance of progress and growth we've made has been in spite of what government decisions have been made. What immigrants have done. People who've come here from Latin America or Puerto Rico or Asia or any of these places, India, it's in spite of what the government has done. Now, it's easy for government to kind of keep its finger and pointed at black folks because you can see it's coming from down the street. You know, we're a little shiny. But other folks can stand back out in the shadows and move along and get done what they want to do. That's why some of the civil rights progress we fought for over the years, Bezel, has most benefited white women because they're almost invisible. And when you're almost invisible, no one is really working to try to stop you from gaining the access to the power that they themselves are trying to hold on to. And in doing so now, you go to almost every college institution, it's dominated by women. You look at most local government boards, school boards dominated by women. You look at almost every profession at the undergraduate level, dominated by women. Now, men still dominate the sciences, engineering, medicine, and some of that stuff, but all your nursing, all your humanities, all your education,
The caretakers.
All that stuff, and even in your business colleges, there are women now stepping to the forefront. That's why when you saw Kamala Harris become vice president, that is very significant. That is extremely significant that women have been on this march, but they've been put on this march because of the efforts by black folks to raise the awareness to the obstructions, to people accessing full government. I told my neighbor the other day, listen, I'm not asking for nothing from America that you don't have. You think of something, you think of anything you want. I want the exact same thing, and because I pay my taxes, I'm entitled to it. I'm not asking anything special. He's like, well, you know, people are always looking for stuff to go to school. I said, yeah, but you know what? You went to school on taxpayer dollars. Because, yeah, I was in the military. I said, hey, it's taxpayer dollars. It's taxpayer dollars. I said, you have free medical care. Taxpayer dollars. Yeah, but I did X. I said, no, you did that. All I'm telling you is it's possible if people have the will. And you don't have that because we just like veterans so much. You all marched on Washington back in World War II, demanding your benefits from World War I. And that was the only way you can get people to go and serve. So it wasn't like the government was looking out for you guys too. All I'm saying, though, is we are part of this hypocrisy, and we have to fight it in any way that we can. And so our government recently is showing us this with some of the new rules and laws that they're passing. This new abortion bill, to me, I don't know really, and maybe I'm unaware of this, but I don't know that we have across America a rampant abortion problem. I don't know that that's what we have. I know some other stuff we have. We have academic issues in school, getting kids to graduate.
Homeless issues, all
Yeah,
kinds of stuff.
we have homelessness and equity and employment and equal pay. We have some issues. I mean, this possibility of a nuclear war in Ukraine is a real issue. But I don't know that we have this issue with abortions out of control. And so sometimes you can make things an issue that you solve that look like you're doing something, and our government does that too much. They've made this out to be because of a vocal, small minority group deciding to tell other people. That is a key phrase. It's one thing I'm fighting for my own right to go to school. I'm fighting so I can go to school. It's something else I'm fighting to prevent someone else I don't know from going to a school that I don't want to attend. And so I just think that our government has to be a lot more conscious of how we deal with each other if we're going to remain illegitimate and have people trust what our government does. And that gets us to trusting our elections. We've had 2 or maybe 3. I think we had the Bush-Gore election where there was doubt placed in the election outcome. Right? That absolutely happened. Then we fast forward and we had the initial Trump election, and people thought that the Justice Department's letter regarding Hillary Clinton swayed the vote right at the end. And then we have now the Biden election where there is doubt about the election. So now what do you tell someone who's been kicked in the teeth all their life by America to go vote? What are they voting for? Why would they have confidence and trust in what our electoral system provides if that's been your experience? And if you don't believe that, well, listen, I think we may have coming up, DJ, I'm going to pretend I'm Pete Stradamus since he's not here. I'm going to give a prediction that we may have the lowest voter turnout of any election in the midterms because people are just not motivated. You know, now that's considering, though, if war didn't break out over in Europe. So let's do this. We're going to take another break, Bezel, hit the midpoint, come back on the other side. We're going to talk about a few more things, all right?
We miss Pete singing, right?
Oh, man.
Taking us away.
For real, we don't miss Pete singing. In Touch News Radio, reality radio, everybody's a star. We'll be right back after this quick message. Daryl's daughter,
Who doesn't love being number one? When your team's dominating the standings, or your favorite band rocks the charts at number one, it feels good, right? Kind of like how it feels when you have auto insurance with State Farm. Because making you feel like number one is an honor your local State Farm agent takes seriously. Through the good times and not so good, your State Farm agent's proud to be here to help life go right.
Call Herman White at 961-6661. That's 961-6661.
Hi, this is Angela Birdsong with Tampa Bay Politics. And not only can you catch us on InTouchNews.com every Wednesday at 11 a.m., we now have a website at TampaBayPoliticsPodcast.com. We are on Apple, Google, Spotify, and Stitcher, which you can log in at any time and listen to Tampa Bay Politics.
Hey, this is Agent Wright, better known as Mr. Clean. You looking for some great barbecue? Come see them 2 brothers in the grill, located at 423 Virginia Street, Charleston, West Virginia. We got ribs, chicken, pulled pork, brisket, collard greens, mac and cheese, baby. Come get some and get you a nice, smooth cigar. 304-550-4431. That is 304-550-4431. Come get some, baby. The Rib Man, mama, the Rib Man.
All right, we're back live on InTouch News Radio, reality radio. Everybody can be a star again. This is Clinton Parrish flying solo, y'all. And as you can tell from the sound of my voice, it is a wonderful thing to be in this studio, free as a bird, able to say and do what you want to do, and not have to worry about stepping on Pete's toes. You know, these Republicans have gotten a little sensitive in these last few years, I guess because they've lost their way, and every now and again, they get to have to be called out. So I've got on the phone with me right now one of Tampa's up and emerging leaders, Edwin Narain, former Senator Ed Narain. Good morning, Brother Narain. How you feeling today? Man. I'm sorry to hear that, man. Sorry. Listen, man. So you're up in town. So listen, we were looking for you at the celebration at Grain and Berry. Our friend and fraternity brother Tim Adams sold his Grain and Berry operation, and we had a great send off for him. We were looking for you there, and somebody said Ed is up in Tallahassee, and I said, well, let me get Ed on the show then, and let's bring the people up to date. Ed, how was your trip to Tallahassee?
So personally, it was very rewarding. I was blessed because my daughter served as a page to one of Tampa's really big rising stars, Pinterest Driscoll, in the Florida House. So that's an experience that, young people, when they get that, it really sparks ideas. So now my daughter's talking about running for office and all this other stuff at 13 years old. Personally, on the flip side, I watched some really draconian stuff pass through the Florida House. Obviously, the abortion bill that you were talking about, the 15-week abortion ban, that went through. The Don't Say Gay bill was pushed through committee. And, of course, other committees were discussing the woke corporations or the CRT legislation. Everything that I just talked about basically falls into one category. It's called red meat for the base. So if you are an elected official and happen to be a Republican, this is going to be a very quick session. The session starts in January in election years. And they want to get out and start campaigning on the things that they did to protect people's rights. But like you said, I have a personal belief that the leaders of the GOP today have lost their way, and they've moved far, far away from their stated principles.
Wow, outstanding. So you say you called the 15-week abortion bill draconian. What is it about that bill itself that really sets you off?
Well, let's start at the very beginning, right? It takes a man and a woman to make a child. So, we're putting these restrictions on women's health care. We're basically saying that you don't have control over what happens with your body. Now, my personal opinion about abortion doesn't matter. If you look at what Americans that have been polled, this is on both sides of the aisle, the idea of overturning Roe v. Wade is not very popular. Correct. Almost 63% of Americans say, hey, let it alone, because as you said in the last segment, America doesn't have an abortion problem. What we have is an access problem. Yeah. And what do I mean by access? On two fronts. One, for medical care, from the very beginning up front for both women, men, and children. But on the flip side, and I actually said this when I was elected, people want to be pro-life in the womb, but they're not pro-life in the real world that we live in. So you want the mother to carry the child with no exceptions, and that was the part that really burned me. A woman can be raped, and she has to carry that child to term after 15 weeks. That's why I call it draconian, because there are no exceptions made. In fact, this legislation is modeled after the state of Mississippi's abortion legislation. So Florida is now trying to be like Mississippi. Something's wrong with that.
Now, is Mississippi the case that's going before the Supreme Court? Is that Alabama? I've lost which one that is. I know one of those states, and that's why everybody's jumping on the bandwagon right now, thinking, okay, looking at the makeup of the Supreme Court, they're going to give something back as it relates to the limiting abortion somehow. Do you know which state that case is from that's at the Supreme Court?
I don't know, but let's go ahead and merge the two and just make them, Mississippi Burma. Because their policies are basically the same. We saw the Supreme Court basically halfway take up the Texas abortion ban and not fully rule on it. And I think that was more problematic, knowing that they had this pending case in front of them. They should have just, said, we're not going to take this up because it will be settled in a few months, probably by June of this year when they usually put out rulings. But, ultimately, what we all have to remember as Americans is, we can't say in one breath that you want people to have individual freedoms. Like you were talking about, hey, don't tell me whether I have to take a vaccine or not, don't force it down my throat. But then we're forcing health decisions, or rather, we're taking health decisions away from women. And the other piece of this is, fine, if you're really a believer in the fact that you want to get rid of this Roe v. Wade, you just want to overturn it, that's great. Let's, on the other side of this, pump up the financial resources for single mothers, single dads, for children that are going to be brought, basically a lot of times, born into poverty. And they're still going to be getting money from the system in terms of taking care of them. But let's pump that side up since we're going to force people to have children.
All right. So we see what Republicans are doing. Talk to me about the Democratic response to some of these actions that seem to be just rolling along state by state. How are Democrats respond? Well, how should they respond in preparation for these midterms?
So, well, if I'm a Democrat and part of the Democratic Party on the ballot, and I wanted to talk about these issues, I wouldn't talk about them in the terms that I often hear tossed around. Like, when we say abortion to most men, myself included, we kind of turn our heads. We don't want to talk about that issue. Right. So you have to talk about, the fact that these are personal health care decisions, right? And I'm not talking about whether or not you have a child. I'm talking about the fact that there's a thing, and you know this in the legal profession, called creep, right? Or a slippery slope. So today, you tell a woman that you only can make this decision within the first 15 weeks. Well, it starts with this, and it could turn into something else. Nobody's passed a law that said, married men have to have vasectomies after they have a third child, right? Imagine if there was something like that someone proposed. Men would lose their mind. That's an invasive procedure.
Yes.
And we're doing the same thing to women. We're basically saying you are not allowed to make decisions concerning your body. Okay? I'm just looking at it at the most simplest of terms. So what the Democratic Party needs to do is message about personal freedom and the fact that the other side is trying to take that away. But I would leave certain words out of that.
Got it. That's very. I like that. I like that approach. But it's going to take a little bit more. I mean, the Democrats, and particularly Joe Biden, have taken a beating in the last, I'd say, 6 to 8 months. What are going to be keys to the Democrats turning the tide in the midterms?
So I think it's two things. The first is, Democrats have to stop eating other Democrats. And what I mean by that is not necessarily elections, but there's a very progressive wing of the party that there's nothing Joe Biden can do that's right for them. And I think that's unfair, right? Because when we look at what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris together have done over the last 13 months, it's actually remarkable. If I could take your listeners back to 2021, what I would say to them is February 2021, we didn't have the vaccines widely available yet. They were talking about it, how they would potentially distribute it, right? But people weren't vaccinated. To date, over 200 million Americans have had at least one shot. Okay. You had inflation was not a problem, but we knew inflation was going to be a problem. We knew that it would be temporary. What we're going through is not going to be permanent. It's temporary because of the amount of money that flooded the system for COVID relief. Okay. But unemployment was at 6.4% a year ago. It's down to 4.4. It's dropped 2%.
Wait, hold on. Are you going to say that Joe Biden has reduced African American unemployment to the lowest level ever in history? Are you going to say that?
I'll piggyback on that if that's what you're saying. But yes, you also, and we love to talk about the economy, right? At the end of the day, 6.4 million jobs have been created in the last 13 months. I mean, so there have been successes, and I think the biggest one is the infrastructure bill. The mythical infrastructure bill under the last president actually was created and passed under Joe Biden. So these are things individually that if we just talked about for anybody else, we'd be like, man, this guy is amazing. But because student loans haven't been forgiven yet, because we tend to take a Republican talking points and use them against our own standard bearer in the president, we can't celebrate successes. It's a loser's mindset, and we need to get past that.
Yeah, I think that's a very good approach to take. It doesn't have any sizzle to it. Election, you need some excitement. I like the Super Bowl halftime show, but when what's that guy's name? Janet Jackson's had her mouth function and had a little sizzle to it. Got a little more attention. I like the halftime show though. I'm just saying the Democrats, they're gonna need a little sizzle. In their election presentation, if they're going to carry the day. Listen, Ed, I'm up on my break. Can you hang on to the other side of the break real quick?
Sure.
All right, do this. We want to hang on. And here's what I wanted to ask you about. I want to ask you about the potential of a Supreme Court justice having graduated from USF. What that would mean for the institution, all the people that went to the University of South Florida back in the day. So if you all will hang in there, Ed, we're going to come back on the other side and just talk about what that would mean to the University of South Florida. This is In Touch News Radio, Reality Radio, everybody's a star. We'll be right back after this quick break.
tried the other ones before, so believe we hunted down 813-248-6300. Everything gon' be okay, call Ricky, he coming. He taking kids state of Florida, grab a pin of sundown. 184-361-RICK. That's 184-361-425. Never word from the point forward, just recline. Just ask Ricky, plus your boy statewide. Just in case you missed it, I'ma tell you one more time. 184-361-RICK. Call Ricky, ask Ricky, is a legal medical referral service. The doctors and lawyers in our network are trained in handling auto injury claims and giving you the best medical treatment and recovery. Dial 1-844-361-RICK. That's 1-844-361-7425. Ricky. Ask Ricky.
Hi, this is Angela Birdsong, and I'm so proud to say I have my very first sponsor for Tampa Bay Politics. His name is Sam Cohen of Attorneys First. So if you are an attorney, please give him the opportunity to quote you for errors and omissions insurance. His number is 727-799-4321. That's 727-799-4321.
By now, we're all aware of the dangers of COVID-19. Like others with existing health issues, cancer patients are at a high risk due to their compromised condition. If you are newly diagnosed with cancer, your care likely can't wait. Moffitt Cancer Center is the best place for your cancer concerns and to provide guidance to help you plan your next steps. We're here for you. Call 1-888-456-2839 or go to moffitt.org/here-for-you.
All right, we're back live on InTouch News Radio, reality radio. Everybody can be a star. This is Straight Up the Middle, and I'm on the phone talking with our guest, the Honorable Attorney Edwin Lorraine, former Florida State Senator. He's polite enough to spend a little time with us. Now, you're a graduate of University of South Florida, correct, Mr. Lorraine?
I'm certainly an alum, yeah.
All right, then. And let me go a little further. Actual student body president out of the University of South Florida. So we're talking leadership for a long, long time. Listen, so the fact that a student from the University of South Florida in the name of Juliana Michelle Childs is even in the mix is quite astounding. When you heard about that, what were your first thoughts?
It's funny, that rumor started going around really quickly that she was on the short list and everybody was super excited. I mean, when you really think about the glass ceiling that she could potentially break if nominated and then confirmed, it would be amazing. Most of the time, your Supreme Court justices had gone to Ivy League schools and received Ivy League legal educations. And here she is, a black woman from the South, I believe South Carolina, to be exact, about to, potentially get selected to make history. What it means for South Florida, which unfortunately has not had the political clout in the state of Florida or the country as it should have. I mean, for a long time, like our most famous alum was Hulk Hogan, right?
Yeah.
Crazy, but true. But it would mean a ton.
I think the comedian Gallagher.
And Gallagher, yeah, that's right. Breaking watermelons back in the day.
Exactly.
But for Judge Childs, I mean, if you look at her resume, it's impressive. And I will say this, there have been a lot of conservatives who said, oh, Biden put himself in a box, and how dare you, it's an insult to say you're going to select a black woman and not look at other opportunities. And, to that I say it's way past time that black women are reflected in leadership positions around this country. The Supreme Court remains one of the largest glass ceilings to get broken. And truly, you were talking about this earlier when you mentioned some affirmative action and the benefit of white women specifically from it. It's been black women who've held it down for the Democratic Party in particular. So this would be a huge win. I think it would have an impact on decisions that are going to be made because it brings a totally different lens and perspective to decision-making at the highest level in our country.
One of the things that I think goes without a lot of people appreciating is what happens to black students at predominantly white institutions, affectionately called PWIs, and how hostile they can be to your development and growth, and the yeoman work that's done by administrators on those campuses to keep the students sane and moving forward, and most of all, graduating. And I'm thinking about people like at the University of South Florida, like Dr. Wanda Lewis Campbell, Dr. Sam Wright, Glenn Gilkey, Troy Collier. I could just go on and on naming people at the school, Dr. Nola Allen, who individually embraced the African American students and gave them the support they needed to move forward with their education. Wouldn't this be a real affirmation to their efforts if she is able to be elevated to the Supreme Court?
I would fully expect that Justice Childs will be on every piece of literature the University of South Florida puts out going forward, right next to the president's picture. So,
did I hear a new scholarship being named?
Listen, you know that's going to happen as well. And here's the other piece. I mean, if being completely transparent, the first African American on the Supreme Court was Thurgood Marshall. His history of fighting for civil rights was impeccable. From the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, arguing for Brown versus the Board of Education, Topeka, Kansas at the time, Brown to taking LBJ's offer to be on the Supreme Court as a justice in the 60s was amazing. But he was replaced by someone in Clarence Thomas that had the opposite in terms of values. Despite his humble upbringings in Georgia, right?
Yes.
Everything about Clarence Thomas has been antithetical to the values of the African American community. So my belief is, given Judge Childs, I'm already crowning her, look at that, given her background as Secretary of the Department of Labor in South Carolina, being elected as a judge there, sitting on the federal court, the district court of South Carolina there, I believe her perspective alone is going to send a message and inspire other women, not just black women, other women to look at a career in the legal profession. So I'm excited for this opportunity for her. I really hope it happens.
Outstanding. Well, Ed, I appreciate you taking the time this morning to chat with us for a couple of minutes. And hey, keep doing all the work that you're doing. I know you're raising a lot of money for the University of South Florida. You're a leader in our community. And, man, most of all, you're doing a spectacular job with those two young ladies. I'm looking forward to getting them back in studio sometime soon. So you enjoy your weekend, and thanks a lot for taking some time with us today.
No problem. Thanks, gentlemen.
All right, take care, Ed. All right, that was former Senator Ed Narain calling in. And listen, I'm going to do something a little bit unusual. I'm going to call one of our callers because I've not heard from him today. I assume that he's probably having some issues getting through on our line. But hey, listen, we'll make that work. So I'm going to reach out. We're gonna call up this guy. He calls himself Carl the Trucker. Bring him in live and see what he has to say. Let's bring him on real quick.
Call the Trucker. Get him first. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we got to get him first.
We got to get him first.
Man. He might be making a U-turn or right on red or something that he can't call in and chat with us. But he was supposed to be calling in. He had something on his mind this morning. So we'll have to get with Carl next week. We just tried to reach him on our line and see if we can get him in. But look, I'm excited, though, about the potential of a very, what I would call, pedestrian Supreme Court justice. Mm-hmm. A real person of the people. Here's my man calling in now. Let's get him on live. So we've got Carl the Trucker calling in. Good morning, Carl. How you feeling?
I'm feeling okay. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Listen, you live now, so don't say nothing crazy. Listen, man. Look. What's going? Is your boy Biden really gonna push this dispute with Ukraine and Russia? I mean, he seems every day come out saying a war is about to happen. Is he trying to make a war happen? What's going on?
No, I think he just want. I think okay. Good morning to Good Attorney. That was a good show you had this morning. Very enlightening on the history and the discrimination with the housing. Yeah, I think he want to stay on his toes.